teachers on the payroll this summer was by closing one of the most egregious loopholes that even some of the companies who were getting the benefit admitted really didn't have any logic to it. But the other side voted against us. We had to really fight to get it done. So I want tax breaks to go to companies that are investing here in the United States, investing in research, investing in development. That's common sense. And that's what every other country does. Every other country structures their tax code so that you have an incentive to invest there and create jobs there. We should be doing the exact same thing. Now, when it comes to trade, I'm a big supporter of trade, and obviously Seattle and the Pacific Northwest generally benefits greatly from trade. And we don't want to build a wall between ourselves and other countries. I think we've got the best workers on earth. We've got the most innovative entrepreneurs here. We've got unbelievable universities. There's no reason why we can't compete with anybody on anything around the world. But it's got to be structured so that it's fair. And frankly, because we used to be so big and other countries were so far behind, when a lot of the trade rules were initially set up, I think we neglected to drive as tough of a bargain as we could have, just because the feeling was, well, if China is making low-wage or low-skill assembly line toys, that's not a huge loss to the United States relative to our overall economy. But what we didn't understand was if they're working hard, competing, advancing each and every year, then over time they're going to try not just to be making toys, but then they want to make computers, and then they're going to want to make cars, and right? And they move up the value stream of the economy. And if we have the same rules as we had, where they're able to keep our products out, but we're wide open to any products they want to send in, then we're going to be at a huge disadvantage. And we have seen that disadvantage grow and grow over the last several decades. So what I've said is, I am for trade, but it has to be reciprocal. If you want to sell cars here in the United States, then we've got to be able to sell cars in your markets. If you want to be able to sell manufacturing goods where having low-wage workers is a big advantage to you, then we've got to be able to sell services that take advantage of our knowledge and our high-skill workers, and we've got to be able to go into your markets, and you can't protect them. And that's going to be, I think, a major debate that's going to be coming up over the next couple of years. Now, this is going to be a tough debate because I think a lot of people, their instinct is, well, trade just doesn't work for us generally. And so a lot of people are going to want to, I think, close our borders or slap on huge tariffs on other countries. My attitude is not that I want to end trade. I want to grow trade. I want to expand trade. I want to double our exports. We've set a goal of doubling our exports. But I want to do so by driving a better bargain with our trading partners. And the truth of the matter is they probably expect it. They're trying to figure out why we've been such pushovers for the last couple decades anyway. It doesn't make sense. All right. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. President, forgive me for having my notes, but first I want to let you know how much I applaud your efforts on behalf of this country.
Thank you so much.
And as a mother, former foster parent, and now a kindergarten teacher here in the Seattle area, I've seen the impact of limited resources on our educational system. Our schools are in disrepair. The teachers in my school, we work long hours, and throughout the district, we're dealing with crowded classrooms, and despite this effort, many students are not academically prepared to participate, innovate, and compete in this workforce. And I realize the economy is in dire straits, and our limited dollars are stretched pretty thin. But what can you do at a national level to support teachers at the regional and local level. And by the way, have you and Michelle seen or had a chance to see Waiting for Superman?
Well, Michelle and I did see Waiting for Superman. I got to admit that that's another good deal of being president is like everybody sends you their movies ahead of time. And so we get them on DVD, before they hit the theaters. And it was a powerful movie. Not only did we see the movie, but I was so moved by the kids in the movie that I invited them to the Oval Office, and they came and visited, and we had a wonderful time. And they're all doing well. Not surprisingly, once they were in the movie, suddenly everybody rallied to make sure that they could get into a terrific school. But of course, there are millions of kids like that who are talented, curious, energetic, and yet right now are still trapped in schools that don't work well. Now, we're not going to transform our education system overnight. It took us decades to get to where we are. It's going to take us a while to get to where we need to be. But here's what we know. We used to rank number 1 in portion of college graduates. We now rank 9th. We used to be at the top when it came to math and science education. We're now 21st and 25th, respectively, in the world when you test 15-year-olds. That's a recipe for disaster. So there's nothing more urgent than for us to make sure that our education system is working effectively. Part of it is a resource issue. Part of it is also a reform issue. And unfortunately, over the last couple of decades, we've had a debate where some people argue, just give us more money, and other people argue, just blow up the system, instead of recognizing it's both. We've got to make investments in education, but we also have to make sure that the money is well spent. So what we did was we designed something called Race to the Top. And the concept's pretty simple. Most federal money going to education, and education accounts for about 7% of overall spending on education because most of it's locally funded. But most of that money is allocated through a standard formula, and it's designed to help particularly schools that have less of a resource base. But what we said was, how about pulling out a few $1 billion and creating a competition? So schools are still going to get their formula-based funding, but if you want some extra money, then we want you to show us that you're pursuing aggressively a reform agenda that focuses on what we know works, which is having high standards, making sure that there's accountability, making sure that we are investing in great teachers, and focusing on low-performing schools and making them transform themselves so that they're not just accepting year after year 50% dropout rates or kids reading at 3 grade levels behind where they should be. And lo and behold, with this relatively small pot of money, because schools all across the country were so interested in competing, we saw already 46 states have initiated legislative changes to move forward on reform. And not every state has won the competition. It's designed to be a competition, but what it's done is made everybody look more carefully at, are we doing things smart? Are we doing things right when it comes to educating our kids? We want to continue that Race to the Top agenda. And as I said, the single most important ingredient for improving our education system is our teachers, making sure we're investing in them. And my sister's a teacher. She's taught in some very tough public schools. So I know how hard teachers work, and the vast majority of them go into it not for the money. They go into it because they care deeply about kids, and they love their jobs. But a lot of them don't get the training that they need. They don't get the support they need. They don't have the professional development that they need. A lot of math teachers didn't major in math in school. A lot of science teachers didn't major in a scientific subject in school. And so we've got to make sure that we're constantly investing in them and also holding them accountable. You know, if we're not seeing good enough performance, then we got to say, you know what, here's how you can improve, and give them concrete ways so that they can up their game, because that has the single biggest impact in terms of kids. Now, the last thing I'll say is just on higher education. I already mentioned this. We have shifted in a deficit neutral way billions of dollars into our student loan programs, into our community colleges. It is making a huge difference for millions of students all across the country. And it was a pretty simple proposition. For years, we had a system in which the student loan program went through banks and financial intermediaries who would take a fee even though they were taking no risk, because these were all federally guaranteed loans. And so we said, well, why would we do that? Why wouldn't we just send these loans directly to the students? If these banks and these financial intermediaries want to help administer the program, then we can hire them for that purpose, but they shouldn't be making a profit off the loans themselves. And we've saved $40 billion now that is going to go over the next several years directly to students who, in the form of, you know, bigger loans, more students getting loans. It can make a huge difference. And that's an example of not making government bigger, just making it work smarter. And you know, those are the kinds of agendas that I think Patty and I and Jim and others want to pursue further over the next couple of years. All right? How much time do we have? I just want to make sure. Sometimes I get scolded by my team. Time for one more. There he is. There's Marvin. I'm going to go back here.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here today and doing this. And I apologize for reading, but this is so very personal and so very important for the women that I work and care for. And I'm a nurse practitioner, nurse midwife, working at a community health center, Planned Parenthood. My clients range between 13 and 16 years of age. The women I see, about 3/4 rely on state programs or pay out of pocket, and 1/4 have health insurance in varying degrees, mostly catastrophic. As a health clinic, we are reimbursed 50% or less for DSHS Medicaid patients. We are one of the few providers who do not cap our Medicaid patients, even though the reimbursement is so low. How will coverage between now and 2014, when more patients will need to be on government programs, not bankrupt our community public health clinics?
Well, first of all, part of our goal is to make sure that there are more people who are able to get health insurance for the job, through their job, or through these health exchanges that we're going to be setting up by 2014. So ideally, that will drive down the number of folks who are uninsured and where you are giving uncompensated care. So that is important. This notion that somehow we did something radical because you know, we shouldn't have government-run health care. The fact is that right now there's all kinds of government-run health care. There's Medicare, there's Medicaid, and then there's emergency room care that indirectly we pay for, one way or another, either because we are subsidizing hospitals that have a lot of uncompensated care, or because all of our premiums are higher, since hospitals have to figure out some way of paying for it, or clinics have to figure out some way of paying for it. So what they do is they just charge people who